reveals that high achievers have fundamentally different neural responses to failure than average performers. When successful, people encounter setbacks. Their brains show increased activity in areas associated with learning, problem-solving, and motivation. When people with failure phobia encounter setbacks, their brains activate regions associated with threat detection, self-protection, and withdrawal. The difference lies not in their innate neurology, but in their learned neural programming around failure. This programming can be systematically rewired to transform failure from a source of limitation into a catalyst for accelerated growth and achievement. The first step in reprogramming your failure response is understanding that your current emotional reactions to setbacks are not based on objective reality, but on learned associations. If you feel shame, anxiety, or self-doubt when things don't go as planned, these emotions are generated by neural pathways that were carved by past experiences and cultural conditioning. Most people learned their failure programming during childhood, when mistakes were often met with criticism, disappointment, or punishment rather than being framed as natural parts of the learning process. This early conditioning creates neural pathways that associate failure with danger, leading to avoidance behaviors that severely limit growth potential. To rewire these patterns, you need to create new associations with failure through direct experience and cognitive reframing. Start by deliberately seeking out situations where failure is possible and practicing new responses when setbacks occur. Instead of focusing on what went wrong, immediately ask, what did I learn? How can I improve? What new possibilities does this open up? The second component involves understanding the neuroscience of learning itself. Your brain learns through a process of prediction, error detection, and pattern adjustment. When your predictions are accurate, your brain maintains existing patterns. When your predictions are wrong, when you experience failure, your brain has the opportunity to update its models and improve future performance. From this perspective, failure is not the opposite of learning. It is learning. Every failure provides your brain with information it needs to refine its strategies and increase the probability of future success. When you reframe failure as essential feedback rather than personal inadequacy, you activate different neural networks that support growth rather than self-protection. Practice this reframing by keeping a failure. Resume a detailed record of your setbacks and what you learned from each one. Include specific lessons, skills developed, and opportunities that arose from each failure. Over time, this document becomes powerful evidence that failures have been stepping stones rather than roadblocks in your journey. The third component involves developing what researchers call anti-fragility, the ability to become stronger from stressors rather than just surviving them. While resilience helps you bounce back to your previous level after setbacks, anti-fragility enables you to reach higher levels of capability through adversity. This requires programming your brain to automatically look for the benefits and growth opportunities in every challenging situation. When you encounter obstacles, train yourself to immediately ask, how might this make me stronger? What skills will I develop by overcoming this? What opportunities might this create that wouldn't have existed otherwise? The fourth component is speed of recovery, how quickly you can process failure, extract its lessons, and return to productive action. High achievers don't experience fewer failures than others. They simply recover from them faster and more completely. Develop systematic recovery protocols for when things don't go as planned. This might include acknowledging what happened without judgment, identifying specific lessons learned, adjusting your strategy based on new information, recommitting to your goals with renewed focus, and taking immediate action in the new direction. The key is to make this process automatic rather than leaving it to chance emotions or random thoughts. When you have a predetermined system for processing failures, you can move through them quickly rather than getting stuck in unproductive emotional loops. The fifth component involves redefining success to include intelligent failures. Most people define success narrowly as achieving predetermined outcomes, which makes any deviation feel like failure. A more empowering definition includes progress, learning, skill development, and strategic positioning, even when specific goals aren't achieved. This doesn't mean lowering your standards or accepting mediocrity. It means recognizing that the path to extraordinary success inevitably includes numerous failures, and each failure contributes to your overall trajectory, even when it doesn't feel positive in the moment. Develop the habit of celebrating. Intelligent. Failures attempts that didn't achieve their intended outcomes but provided valuable learning, developed important skills, or positioned you for future opportunities. This reinforces neural pathways that support risk-taking and experimentation rather than playing it safe. The sixth component is failure analysis and pattern recognition. Instead of avoiding thinking about failures or dismissing them as bad luck, successful people analyze their setbacks systematically to extract maximum learning value. Create regular failure analysis sessions where you examine recent setbacks objectively. Look for patterns in what led to the failures, what could have been done differently, and what systems or skills need to be developed to prevent similar failures in the future. This transforms failures from random negative events into valuable data for improvement. Environmental programming also affects your failure response. Surround yourself with people who view failure as a normal part of success rather than something to be ashamed of. Read biographies of successful people to normalize the role of failure in achievement. Consume content that reinforces growth-oriented, rather than fixed mindsets about setbacks. The ultimate goal is to develop neural programming that makes you antifragile, someone who gets stronger, smarter, and more capable through adversity rather than despite it. When you achieve this level of reprogramming, failure loses its power to stop you because it becomes fuel for your growth rather than evidence of your limitations. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but every time you choose to reframe failure as feedback, extract lessons from setbacks, and continue moving forward despite difficulties, you strengthen the neural pathways that support extraordinary achievement. Over time, you develop the kind of failure-resilient mindset that separates high achievers from those who remain trapped by their fear of not succeeding. Chapter 11. The Social Brain, Rewiring for Influence and Connection. Human beings are fundamentally social creatures, and your brain is wired to constantly evaluate your position within social hierarchies and your connection to others. These social neural networks have profound impacts on your confidence, influence, decision-making abilities, and overall success. Understanding and optimizing your social brain can dramatically enhance your ability to lead, persuade, collaborate, and create the kinds of relationships that accelerate achievement. The social brain consists of several interconnected neural networks that evolve to help humans navigate complex social environments. The mirror neuron system allows you to understand others' actions and emotions by simulating them in your own brain. The theory of mind network enables you to understand what others are thinking and feeling. The social pain network processes rejection and social exclusion with the same neural pathways used for physical pain. These systems work together to create your social reality, influencing everything from your communication style and leadership presence to your ability to build trust and navigate conflicts. Most importantly for success, they determine whether others see you as someone worth following, partnering with, or supporting. The first component of social brain optimization is developing what neuroscientists call social cognitive flexibility, the ability to rapidly read social situations and adjust your behavior appropriately. This involves strengthening connections between your prefrontal cortex and your social processing networks, giving you greater conscious control over your social responses. Most people operate on social autopilot, responding to others based on ingrained patterns and unconscious biases. This limits their effectiveness because they can't adapt their approach to different people and situations. Socially intelligent individuals, however, consciously calibrate their communication style, energy level, and behavioral approach based on real-time social feedback. Practice this by becoming a student of human behavior. In every social interaction, consciously observe the other person's communication style, emotional state, values, and preferences. Then adjust your own approach to create better rapport and more effective communication. This trains your brain to process social information more consciously and respond more strategically. The second component is emotional contagion. Mastery, understanding, and controlling how emotions spread between people through unconscious neural mirroring. Your emotional state doesn't just affect you. It influences everyone around you through mirror neuron activation. When you feel confident, others unconsciously begin to feel more confident. When you feel anxious, you transmit that anxiety too. Others high-influence individuals understand this principle and deliberately cultivate emotional states that serve their goals and benefit others. They don't just manage their emotions for personal reasons. They manage them as a form of leadership and service to others before important social interactions. Consciously generate the emotional state you want others to experience. You want them to feel confident about a decision. Cultivate genuine confidence in yourself first. If you want them to feel excited about an opportunity, embody that excitement authentically. Your emotional state becomes contagious and influences the entire social dynamic. The third component involves developing superior empathy and perspective-taking abilities. Empathy is not just about being nice. It's a crucial cognitive skill that allows you to understand others' motivations, predict their responses, and influence their decisions more effectively. Your brain's empathy networks can be strengthened through deliberate practice. Regularly engage in perspective-taking exercises where you consciously try to understand situations from others' viewpoints. When someone disagrees with you, instead of immediately defending your position, first, try to understand why their perspective makes sense from their frame of reference. This doesn't mean agreeing with everyone or abandoning your own views. It means developing the cognitive flexibility to understand multiple perspectives simultaneously, which makes you far more effective at communication, negotiation, and leadership. The fourth component is presence and charisma development. Charisma is often thought of as an innate quality, but neuroscience reveals it's actually a set of learnable behaviors that create specific responses in others' brains. Charismatic individuals generate neural responses in others that are associated with attention, admiration, and desire to follow. Key charismatic behaviors include maintaining strong eye contact, which activates mirror neuron systems and creates feelings of connection, speaking with vocal variety and appropriate volume, which keeps others' attention engaged, using purposeful gestures that reinforce your message, maintaining open, confident posture that signals competence and trustworthiness, and demonstrating authentic passion for your message or mission. Practice these behaviors until they become natural rather than forced. The goal is not to manipulate others, but to remove barriers that prevent your authentic value from being perceived. Clearly, the fifth component involves developing social proof and status optimization. Your brain is constantly evaluating your social status relative to others, and these evaluations influence your confidence, risk-taking, and performance. More importantly, others are unconsciously evaluating your status and using those evaluations to determine how much influence to grant you. Status in the modern world is not just about formal titles or wealth. It's about perceived competence, value creation, and social contribution. You can enhance your social status by systematically building expertise, contributing value to others, associating with other high-status individuals, and consistently demonstrating leadership qualities. This is not about ego or superiority over Others, high-status individuals in healthy social systems, use their influence to benefit others and create positive outcomes. The goal is to develop the kind of genuine status that comes from competence and contribution rather than artificial status based on manipulation or domination. The sixth component is conflict resolution and difficult conversation navigation. Your ability to handle social conflicts effectively has enormous impact on your success, because most opportunities require collaboration with others, and collaboration inevitably involves disagreements and challenging conversations. Train your brain to see conflicts as problem-solving opportunities rather than threats to avoid. When disagreements arise, focus on understanding all perspectives before advocating for your own position. Look for win-win solutions that address everyone's core needs rather than zero-sum outcomes where someone must lose. Develop the emotional regulation skills needed to remain calm and constructive even when others become emotional or hostile. This allows you to de-escalate tensions and guide conversations toward productive resolutions rather than getting caught up in emotional reactivity. The seventh component involves network building and relationship maintenance. Success in most fields depends heavily on relationships: who you know, who trusts you, who is willing to collaborate with you, and who will refer opportunities to you. Yet most people are poor at systematically building and maintaining professional and personal networks. Approach relationship building as a learnable skill rather than hoping it will happen naturally. This means regularly reaching out to existing contacts, meeting new people in your field, providing value to others before asking for anything, and maintaining relationships even when you don't immediately need anything from those people. The most effective networkers focus on giving value first, sharing useful information, making helpful introductions, or supporting others' goals without expecting immediate reciprocation. This creates positive neural associations in others' minds and builds the foundation for mutually beneficial long-term relationships. Social brain optimization is not about becoming someone you're not or manipulating others for selfish gain. It's about removing the barriers that prevent your authentic value from being recognized and developing the social skills that allow you to create more positive outcomes for yourself and others. When you optimize your social brain, you become more influential not through force or manipulation, but through genuine competence, authentic connection, and superior ability to understand and respond to others' needs. This creates the kind of social success that enhances every other area of your life. Chapter 12. Accelerated Learning, Rewiring for Rapid Skill Acquisition. In today's rapidly evolving world, your ability to learn new skills quickly has become one of the most valuable capabilities you can possess. Traditional approaches to learning are too slow and inefficient for the modern pace of change. By understanding and applying the neuroscience of accelerated learning, you can dramatically reduce the time required to master new skills while increasing retention and transfer to real-world application. The key insight from neuroscience research is that learning is not a passive process of information absorption, but an active process of neural network construction. Every skill you develop requires your brain to build specific neural pathways through deliberate practice and strategic conditioning. Understanding how to optimize this process allows you to learn exponentially faster than more conventional methods. The first principle of accelerated learning is specificity of neural pathway development. Your brain doesn't learn general skills. It builds very specific neural networks for particular applications. This means that effective learning requires clearly defining exactly what neural pathways you want to build, rather than engaging in vague skill development. Instead of trying to improve communication skills, you might specifically target delivering compelling presentations under pressure, or having difficult conversations with confidence. This specificity allows your brain to build precise neural networks rather than scattered, weak connections that don't transfer to real-world situations. Define your learning objectives in terms of specific behaviors and capabilities you want to develop. What exactly do you want to be able to do that you cannot do now? What specific situations do you want to handle more effectively? This clarity directs your brain's learning machinery toward building the right neural pathways. The second principle is progressive overload in cognitive training. Just as physical muscles grow stronger when challenged with progressively heavier weights, neural networks develop more rapidly when challenged with progressively more difficult tasks. Most people plateau in their learning because they practice at the same level repeatedly rather than continuously increasing the challenge. Design your learning progression to consistently push beyond your current comfort zone. If you're learning a language, don't just practice vocabulary you already know. Constantly add new words and more complex sentence structures. If you're developing leadership skills, don't just practice in safe situations. Seek opportunities to lead in increasingly challenging circumstances. The key is to find the optimal difficulty level, challenging enough to stimulate neural growth, but not so difficult that you become overwhelmed or discouraged. This sweet spot maximizes the rate of neural pathway development while maintaining motivation and progress momentum. The third principle involves leveraging spaced repetition and interleaving for optimal retention. Your brain consolidates learning most effectively when information and skills are revisited at increasing intervals rather than massed into single sessions. This process, called spaced repetition, strengthens neural pathways more efficiently than cramming or intensive practice sessions. Additionally, interleaving, mixing different but related skills or concepts within practice sessions enhances learning transfer and prevents your brain from becoming too specialized in narrow contexts. Instead of practicing one skill for hours, alternate between related skills to build more robust and flexible neural networks. For example, if you're developing sales skills, you might alternate between prospecting techniques, presentation skills, and objection handling within single practice sessions rather than focusing on one area exclusively. The fourth principle is multimodal coding, engaging multiple sensory and cognitive systems simultaneously to create stronger, more accessible neural pathways. Most people learn through single modalities, reading, listening, or practicing. But the brain learns much faster when multiple systems are activated together. Combine visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and emotional learning whenever possible. If you're learning business strategy, don't just read about it. Visualize implementing strategies. Discuss concepts with others. Practice applying principles to real situations and connect emotionally with successful outcomes. This multimodal approach creates multiple neural pathways to the same information, making it more accessible under different circumstances and increasing the likelihood of successful transfer to real-world applications. The fifth principle involves deliberate practice with immediate feedback loops. Random practice or repetition without feedback builds neural pathways slowly and often incorrectly. Accelerated learning requires deliberate practice, focused effort on specific weaknesses with immediate feedback about performance quality. This means identifying the precise aspects of a skill where you're weakest and practicing those elements intensively with mechanisms for immediate performance feedback. If you're developing presentation skills, record yourself speaking and analyze specific areas for improvement. Rather than just giving presentations and hoping you're getting better, seek mentors, coaches, or systematic feedback mechanisms that can provide accurate, immediate information about your performance quality. The faster the feedback loop, the more rapidly your brain can adjust and optimize its neural pathways. The sixth principle is leveraging neuroplasticity enhancers activities and conditions that increase your brain's capacity for neural rewiring. Physical exercise, particularly cardiovascular activity, increases BDNF production and enhances neuroplasticity. Quality sleep is essential for memory consolidation and neural pathway strengthening. Meditation improves attention and reduces cognitive interference. Structure your learning schedule to include these neuroplasticity enhancers rather than treating them as separate activities. Exercise before learning sessions to prime your brain for neural growth. Ensure adequate sleep after learning to allow consolidation. Use meditation to improve focus during practice sessions. The seventh principle involves emotional engagement and meaning-making. Your brain prioritizes learning that has emotional significance and clear relevance to your goals. Abstract or emotionally neutral learning is processed more slowly and retained less effectively than learning connected to strong emotions and clear purpose. Connect every skill you're developing to compelling personal outcomes. How will mastering this skill transforms your life, career, or relationships? What exciting possibilities will become available once you've developed this capability? The stronger the emotional connection, the more resources your brain allocates to neural pathway development, mental rehearsal, and visualization. Accelerate skill development by allowing your brain to practice neural patterns without physical execution. Athletes have used this technique for decades, and brain imaging shows that mental practice activates the same neural networks as physical practice. Spend time visualizing yourself, executing skills with perfect technique, and achieving desired outcomes. This mental practice builds neural pathways that support physical execution while also programming confidence and motivation patterns that enhance real-world performance. The eighth principle is learning transfer optimization, ensuring that skills developed in practice situations transfer effectively to real-world applications. Many people can demonstrate skills in controlled learning environments but struggle to apply them under pressure or in different contexts. Practice skills in varied contexts that match real-world conditions as closely as possible. If you're developing negotiation skills, practice in different settings with different types of people rather than just role-playing with the same partner repeatedly. This builds neural flexibility that supports transfer across multiple contexts. The final principle is metacognitive development. Learning how to learn more effectively by understanding your own learning processes. The most effective learners are not necessarily the most intelligent. They are those who understand how their brains learn best and continuously optimize their learning strategies. Regularly evaluate your learning effectiveness. What methods work best for you? What conditions optimize your learning speed? What obstacles consistently interfere with your progress? This self-awareness allows you to continuously refine your approach and learn more efficiently over time. Accelerated learning is not about working harder. It's about working in alignment with how your brain naturally builds new capabilities. When you apply these neuroscience-based principles systematically, you can develop new skills in weeks or months that might otherwise take years to master. Chapter 13. Wealth Consciousness, Rewiring Your Money Brain. Your relationship with money is not based on rational economic analysis. It's controlled by deep neural programming that was largely installed before you had any real experience with wealth creation. This programming determines not only how you think and feel about money, but also the financial behaviors that ultimately create your economic reality. Neuroscience. Research reveals that people have distinct neural patterns when processing financial information, making money-related decisions, and thinking about wealth. These patterns are so consistent that researchers can predict financial behaviors by observing brain activity. More importantly, these neural patterns can be systematically rewired to support wealth creation rather than financial struggle. The first component of wealth consciousness is understanding your inherited money programming. Most people's financial neural networks were shaped by their family's relationship with money, cultural beliefs about wealth, and early experiences with financial stress or abundance. These early impressions created neural pathways that continue influencing financial decisions. Decades later, if you grew up hearing that money doesn't grow on trees, rich people are greedy, or we can't afford that, your brain installed neural programs that associate money with scarcity, difficulty, and moral complexity. Conversely, if you were raised in an environment where wealth was normal and positive, your brain developed different associations that support financial success. 2. Identify your money programming. Pay attention to your automatic thoughts and emotional responses around financial topics. What happens in your brain when you think about earning more money? Do you feel excited and motivated, or anxious and overwhelmed? When you consider investing or starting a business, does your mind immediately explore possibilities or list reasons why it won't work? Notice the stories you tell yourself about wealthy people. Do you see them as evil and greedy, or as valuable contributors who deserve their success? Your brain's assessment of wealthy people directly influences whether it will allow you to become wealthy yourself. If your neural programming views wealth as morally questionable, your subconscious will sabotage your financial progress to maintain consistency with your beliefs. The second component involves rewiring scarcity programming for abundance thinking. Scarcity programming causes your brain to perceive money as a limited resource that must be hoarded, fought over, and carefully protected. This creates neural patterns of fear, competition, and limitation that block wealth creation opportunities. Abundance programming, however, trains your brain to see money as energy that flows freely and can be created through value provision. When you have abundance programming, you look for ways to create value rather than ways to hoard resources. You see opportunities where others see obstacles, and you're willing to invest and take calculated risks because you believe in your ability. To generate wealth, start rewiring scarcity programming by consciously looking for evidence of abundance in your environment. Notice how much wealth surrounds you, the infrastructure, technology, businesses, and opportunities that exist in modern society. Recognize that most of this wealth was created by people who were not born wealthy, but who developed the skills and mindset necessary for wealth creation. Practice abundance thinking by regularly asking yourself, how can I create more value? What problems can I solve for others? How can I improve or innovate in my field? These questions train your brain to think like a wealth creator rather than a wealth consumer. The third component is developing what researchers call delayed gratification programming, the neural ability to sacrifice short-term pleasures for long-term financial benefits. Studies like the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment have shown that the ability to delay gratification is one of the strongest predictors of long-term success, including financial success. Most people's brains are wired for immediate gratification because that programming served survival purposes in earlier environments. However, wealth creation requires the ability to invest time, energy, and resources now for benefits that may not materialize for months or years. Train delayed gratification by regularly choosing long-term benefits over short-term pleasures. This might mean investing money instead of spending it on consumer goods, studying instead of watching entertainment, or building a business instead of taking a higher-paying job. Each time you choose delayed gratification, you strengthen the neural pathways that support wealth creation. The fourth component involves reprogramming your relationship with risk and uncertainty. Wealth creation inherently involves risk. Starting businesses, making investments, changing careers, or developing new skills all involve uncertainty about outcomes. If your brain is programmed to avoid risk at all costs, you'll unconsciously avoid the activities that create wealth. Successful wealth creators don't eliminate risk. They become skilled at evaluating and managing risk. They understand that avoiding all risk is actually the greatest risk because it guarantees mediocrity. Their brains are programmed to see calculated risks as opportunities rather than threats. Gradually expose yourself to increasing levels of financial risk while building your risk assessment and management skills. Start with small investments or side projects where failure won't devastate you financially, but success could provide meaningful returns. As you develop competence and confidence, you can take on larger opportunities. The key is to distinguish between intelligent risk-taking and reckless gambling. Intelligent risk involves thorough analysis, preparation for multiple outcomes, and positioned where the potential upside significantly outweighs the potential downside. The fifth component is developing value creation programming. The most fundamental truth about wealth creation is that money flows to those who create the most value for others. Your brain needs to be programmed to constantly look for ways to increase the value you provide rather than just trying to get more money for the same effort. This requires shifting from an employee mindset to an entrepreneur mindset, regardless of whether you're actually self-employed. Employee mindset focuses on trading time for money and getting by with minimum effort. Entrepreneur mindset focuses on creating maximum value and finding ways to generate results that exceed expectations. Train your brain to think like a value creator by regularly asking, how can I solve bigger problems? What skills would make me more valuable? How can I help others achieve their goals? What innovations or improvements can I contribute? These questions program your brain to focus on value creation, which naturally leads to increased compensation. The sixth component involves installing abundance and prosperity visualization programming. Your brain uses visualization to plan and prepare for future scenarios. If you never visualize yourself as wealthy, your brain has no neural blueprint for creating that reality. Most people can easily visualize problems and challenges, but struggle to create clear, compelling visions of financial success. Spend time regularly visualizing yourself living with financial abundance. See yourself making investment decisions, managing multiple income streams, living in your ideal environment, and having the freedom that comes with financial independence. Make these visualizations as detailed and emotionally engaging as possible. The key is to visualize not just the end result, but the person you would need to become to create that result. How would a wealthy version of yourself think, make decisions, spend time, and interact with others? Begin embodying those characteristics now rather than waiting until you achieve financial success. The seventh component is social programming and environmental design. Your brain is heavily influenced by the people you spend time with and the environments you frequent. If you're surrounded by people who struggle financially and complain about money, your brain will adapt to that reality as normal. Conversely, if you spend time with people who are financially successful and think abundantly about money, your brain will begin adopting similar neural patterns. Through social mirroring and environmental conditioning, seek out financially successful people. Read books by wealthy individuals, listen to content about wealth creation, and put yourself in environments where abundance is normal rather than exceptional. This doesn't mean abandoning old friends, but it does mean consciously expanding your social circle to include people who model the financial success you want to create. The eighth component involves developing financial education and competency programming. Confidence comes from competence, and you can't feel truly confident about wealth creation if you don't understand how money actually works. Many people avoid financial education because it seems complicated or boring, but this avoidance keeps them trapped in financial limitation. Invest time in learning about investing, business creation, tax strategies, and wealth management. The more you understand about money and wealth creation, the more confident and comfortable your brain becomes with financial topics. This confidence translates into better financial decisions and increased willingness to pursue wealth building. Opportunities start with basic concepts and gradually build your financial knowledge over time. Read books, take courses, attend seminars, and seek mentorship from people who have achieved the kind of financial success you desire. The final component is gratitude and appreciation programming. Paradoxically, the fastest way to create more wealth is to genuinely appreciate what you already have. Gratitude programming trains your brain to recognize abundance rather than focusing on lack, which creates a positive emotional state that attracts more opportunities. Practice daily gratitude for your current financial situation, regardless of how limited it might seem. Appreciate your ability to earn money, the opportunities available to you, and the wealth that already exists in your life in forms other than cash. This doesn't mean being satisfied with limitation, but rather approaching wealth creation from a position of abundance and appreciation rather than desperation and fear. When your brain feels abundant and grateful, it makes better decisions and recognizes more opportunities than when it feels desperate and fearful. Wealth consciousness is not about becoming obsessed with money. It's about developing the neural programming that allows money to flow naturally as a result of value creation, intelligent decision-making, and abundant thinking. When you rewire your money brain systematically, financial success becomes a natural expression of your programming rather than a constant struggle. Against limiting beliefs. Chapter 14. Peak performance states engineering flow and excellence. Peak performance is not a random occurrence or a gift reserved for elite athletes and exceptional individuals. It's a specific neurological state that can be systematically accessed and optimized. When you understand the neuroscience behind peak performance states, you can engineer these conditions deliberately rather than hoping they'll occur spontaneously. Research has identified the key neural signatures of peak performance across various domains. During optimal performance, the brain shows increased activity in task-relevant networks, while suppressing activity in areas associated with self-doubt, distraction, and overthinking. This creates a state of effortless concentration where actions flow naturally and performance exceeds normal capabilities, the first component of peak performance. Engineering is understanding flow states, periods of optimal experience where you become completely absorbed in challenging activities that match your skill level. During flow, your brain releases a cocktail of performance-enhancing neurochemicals, including norepinephrine focus, dopamine reward and motivation, anandamide lateral thinking, and endorphins pleasure and pain relief. Flow states have specific triggers that can be activated deliberately. Challenge skill balance is the most fundamental trigger. You need tasks that are difficult enough to demand your full attention, but not so difficult that they create anxiety. Boredom kills flow just as effectively as overwhelm, so you must continuously calibrate difficulty levels to maintain optimal challenge. Clear goals and immediate feedback are essential flow triggers because they give your brain clear targets to focus on and continuous information about performance quality. Vague objectives and delayed feedback prevent flow states because your brain doesn't have enough information to optimize its performance in real time. Complete concentration on the present moment is another flow trigger. When your attention is scattered across multiple concerns or time periods, you cannot access flow states. Peak performance requires training your brain to focus entirely on the task at hand, letting go of past concerns and future worries. The second component involves optimizing your neurochemical environment for peak performance. Your brain's performance capacity is heavily influenced by the balance of neurotransmitters and hormones circulating through your system. By understanding and optimizing these chemical environments, you can significantly enhance your peak performance. Potential dopamine levels affect motivation, focus, and reward processing. Low dopamine creates procrastination and lack of drive, while optimal dopamine levels generate enthusiasm and sustained effort. You can naturally increase dopamine through completing challenging tasks, celebrating small wins, listening to music you enjoy, and anticipating rewarding outcomes. Norepinephrine functions as the brain's alertness chemical, enhancing focus and attention while suppressing irrelevant neural activity. Moderate levels of norepinephrine are optimal for peak performance. Too little creates sluggishness, while too much creates anxiety. Cold exposure, intense exercise, and challenging mental tasks can optimize norepinephrine levels naturally. GABA serves as the brain's calming neurotransmitter, reducing anxiety and mental noise that interfere with peak performance. Meditation, deep breathing, yoga, and progressive muscle relaxation all increase GABA production, creating the calm alertness characteristic of flow states. The third component is attention training for sustained peak performance. Most people's attention is scattered and reactive, jumping between tasks and concerns without conscious direction. Peak performance requires laser-focused attention that can be sustained for extended periods without fatigue or distraction. Asterisk, single pointing. Attention involves training your brain to focus completely on one target at a time. This could be a physical object, a mental concept, a bodily sensation, or a performance task. The key is developing the ability to return your attention to your chosen target immediately whenever you notice it has wandered meta-attention. Involves becoming aware of your attention itself, noticing when you're focused, when you're distracted, and what factors influence your attentional states. This awareness allows you to consciously optimize your attention for peak performance rather than leaving it to random chance. Attention cycling involves alternating between periods of intense focus and brief recovery periods. Your brain cannot maintain peak attention indefinitely. So optimal performance requires understanding your natural attention rhythms and structuring activities accordingly. Asterisk. The fourth component involves physiology optimization for peak neural performance. Your brain is not separate from your body. Its performance capacity is directly influenced by your physical state, energy levels, and biochemical environment. Sleep optimization is crucial because your brain consolidates learning, clears metabolic waste, and restores neurotransmitter levels during quality sleep. Peak performers prioritize sleep consistency, duration, and quality rather than trying to function on minimal rest. Nutrition, timing, and composition significantly affect cognitive performance. Your brain requires steady glucose levels for optimal function, but blood sugar spikes and crashes create performance variability. Strategic nutrition timing around peak performance periods can enhance mental clarity and sustained energy. Hydration levels directly impact cognitive function, with even mild dehydration reducing mental performance. Peak performers maintain optimal hydration levels rather than waiting until they feel thirsty. Movement and exercise prime your brain for peak performance by increasing BDNF production, improving blood flow, and optimizing neurotransmitter levels. Strategic movement before peak performance periods can significantly enhance cognitive capacity. The fifth component is environmental design for peak performance. Your external environment heavily influences your internal states, and peak performers systematically optimize their surroundings to support optimal performance. Minimizing distractions involves creating environments where irrelevant stimuli cannot capture your attention. This includes visual distractions, auditory interruptions, and digital notifications that fragment your focus. Optimizing sensory inputs means consciously designing the lighting, temperature, sound, and other environmental factors that influence your performance capacity. Small environmental changes can have dramatic impacts on your ability to access and maintain peak states. Creating performance rituals and environmental cues that consistently trigger peak states allows you to access optimal performance more reliably. These might include specific locations, music, lighting, or pre-performance routines that signal to your brain that it's time for peak performance. The sixth component involves developing performance, identity, and self-concept programming. Peak performers don't just perform well occasionally, they identify as high performers at a fundamental level. This identity programming affects every aspect of their preparation, execution, and recovery processes. Embody the identity of someone who consistently performs at peak levels. How would such a person prepare for important tasks? How would they handle setbacks or suboptimal performances? How would they maintain their performance standards over time? Begin embodying these characteristics now, rather than waiting until you achieve peak performance consistently. The seventh component is recovery and regeneration optimization. Peak performance is not sustainable without adequate recovery periods that allow your brain to restore its resources and consolidate learning. Many people try to maintain peak intensity constantly, which leads to burnout and diminished performance capacity. Active recovery involves engaging in activities that restore your mental and physical resources without complete inactivity. This might include light exercise, meditation, creative pursuits, or social connection that replenishes your energy rather than draining it. Passive recovery involves periods of minimal stimulation that allow your brain to process experiences and restore neurotransmitter levels. This includes quality sleep, relaxation, and unstimulated downtime that many people avoid, but which is essential for sustained peak performance. The final component involves continuous performance optimization through systematic analysis and refinement. Peak performers don't just hope for great performances. They study their peak states systematically to understand what conditions and practices produce optimal results. Keep detailed records of your peak performance experiences, noting the conditions, preparation, mindset, and environmental factors that contributed to exceptional results. Look for patterns that can be replicated and refined over time. Experiment with different approaches to peak performance, preparation, and execution, treating each important task as an opportunity to test and refine your performance protocols. When you engineer peak performance states systematically rather than leaving them to chance, you can access exceptional performance capacity on demand rather than waiting for inspiration or perfect conditions. This transforms peak performance from a rare occurrence into a trainable skill that serves you in every area of life. Chapter 15. The Future You, Sustaining Transformation and Continuous Growth. The ultimate test of neural rewiring is not whether you can create temporary changes in your thinking and behavior, but whether you can sustain transformation over time and continue growing throughout your life. Many people experience initial success with brain rewiring techniques only to revert to old patterns when faced with stress, setbacks, or the simple passage of time. Creating lasting transformation requires understanding how to make new neural programming resilient, self-reinforcing, and continuously evolving. This involves developing what neuroscientists call neuroplastic maintenance, systematic practices that keep your brain optimized for growth and prevent regression to limiting patterns. The first principle of sustained transformation is identity integration, making your new neural programming so central to your sense of self that reverting to old patterns feels foreign and uncomfortable. Most behavior change fails because people try to modify actions without changing their underlying identity. They attempt to act like successful people while still seeing themselves as struggling individuals. True transformation occurs when your new neural patterns become integrated into your core identity. Instead of trying to act confident, you become a confident person. Instead of trying to make money, you become someone who naturally creates wealth. Instead of trying to be successful, you embody the identity of a successful individual. This integration process requires consistent reinforcement of your new identity through thoughts, emotions, and actions. Every day, you must make choices that align with your transformed identity rather than your old self-concept. Over time, these consistent choices strengthen the neural pathways associated with your new identity until they become your default mode of operation. The second principle involves creating self-reinforcing feedback loops that maintain your progress automatically. The most sustainable transformations are those that create their own momentum through positive feedback cycles. As you implement new neural programming, you get better results. Better results reinforce your new beliefs and behaviors. Stronger beliefs and behaviors lead to even better results. Design your life to create these positive feedback loops deliberately. If you're rewiring for confidence, put yourself in situations where you can experience success and positive feedback. If you're developing wealth consciousness, engage in activities that generate financial results. If you're building peak performance capabilities, undertake challenges that allow you to experience flow states and exceptional results. The key is to stack successes systematically rather than leaving positive experiences to chance. Each success becomes evidence that supports your new neural programming, making it stronger and more resistant to old limiting patterns. The third principle is environmental reinforcement. Designing your surroundings to continuously support your new neural programming rather than undermining it. Your environment provides constant input to your subconscious mind, either reinforcing transformation or pulling you back toward old patterns. Audit your environment systematically. What messages does your physical space send about your identity and capabilities? What kinds of information do you consume regularly through media, books, and conversations? Who do you spend time with, and do they support your growth or reinforce limitation? Make deliberate changes to align your environment with your new programming. Surround yourself with visual reminders of your goals and new identity. Consume content that reinforces empowering beliefs and successful mindsets. Spend time with people who see you as capable and support your growth rather than those who expect you to remain the same. The fourth principle involves developing anti-fragility, the ability to become stronger from stressors rather than just surviving them. Life will inevitably present challenges that test your new neural programming. Many people lose their progress during difficult periods because they haven't trained their transformed mindsets to handle adversity, build challenges, and stressors deliberately into your growth process rather than avoiding them. Practice your new neural patterns under pressure, during setbacks, and in difficult circumstances. This creates robust programming that maintains itself even when conditions are not ideal. Develop systematic protocols for handling setbacks without losing your progress. You encounter obstacles or failures. Have predetermined responses that reinforce your new identity rather than triggering regression to old patterns. This might include reframing techniques, identity reinforcement practices, or support systems that help you maintain your transformation during difficult periods. The fifth principle is continuous learning and adaptation. Your brain is designed to keep growing throughout your life, but only if you continue challenging it with new learning experiences. Many people plateau in their personal development because they stop pushing their boundaries once they achieve a certain level of success. Commit to lifelong learning and continuous improvement rather than treating transformation as a one-time achievement. Always have new skills you're developing, new challenges you're pursuing, and new levels of capability you're working toward. This keeps your brain in growth mode rather than maintenance mode. Stay curious about yourself and your potential. What new capabilities could you develop? What areas of your life could be optimized further? What limiting beliefs might you still be carrying that could be upgraded? This curiosity-driven approach ensures that your transformation continues deepening. Over time, the sixth principle involves teaching and sharing your transformation with others. One of the most powerful ways to cement new neural programming is to teach it to others. When you articulate your insights, share your strategies, and help others implement similar changes, you reinforce your own transformation while creating accountability and purpose. Look for opportunities to mentor others. Share your growth experiences or contribute to others' development in ways that align with your own transformation. This creates meaning and social reinforcement for your new programming while helping others achieve similar growth. The seventh principle is systematic tracking and optimization of your transformation process. Peak performers in every field meticulously track their progress and continuously refine their approaches based on results. Apply this same principle to your neural rewiring process. Keep detailed records of your practices, results, and insights. What techniques produce the fastest and most lasting changes? What obstacles consistently interfere with your progress? What environmental factors support or undermine your transformation? This data allows you to continuously optimize your approach rather than hoping for the best. Conduct regular reviews of your transformation progress. Are you maintaining the gains you've made? What areas need additional attention or different approaches? What new levels of growth are now possible? These reviews ensure that your development remains active and intentional rather than stagnating. The eighth principle involves developing a long-term vision that continues pulling you forward. Transformation is easier to sustain when you have compelling future goals that require continued growth. Without evolving challenges and aspirations, you may lose motivation to maintain your new neural programming. Create a vision of who you want to become over the next decade, not just the next year. What capabilities do you want to develop? What contributions do you want to make? What kind of person do you want to be? This long-term vision provides direction for your continued development and prevents complacency. The ninth principle is building resilience into your transformation through redundancy and flexibility. Sustainable change cannot depend on perfect conditions or single strategies. Build multiple pathways to maintain your progress and develop flexibility in how you implement your new programming. Have backup systems for maintaining your transformation. When your primary practices are disrupted by travel, stress, or changing circumstances, develop multiple techniques for accessing each desired mental state rather than depending on single methods. This redundancy ensures that your transformation remains stable, even when some elements of your system are temporarily unavailable. The final principle is embracing transformation as a lifelong identity rather than a temporary project. The most successful personal development occurs when growth becomes central to who you are rather than something you do occasionally. When you identify as someone who is continuously growing, learning, and evolving, transformation becomes a natural expression of your core identity. This perspective shifts your relationship with personal development from something you have to force yourself to do to something you naturally engage in because it's who you are. Growth becomes as natural as breathing rather than a constant battle against inertia. When you apply these principles systematically, your neural rewiring becomes self-sustaining and continuously evolving. You develop the kind of transformation that lasts decades rather than months, creating a foundation for lifelong success and fulfillment. The future you is not a distant possibility, but an emerging reality that begins with the neural pathways you're building today. Every thought you choose, every belief you reinforce, and every action you take is literally sculpting the brain that will create your future experiences. Take ownership of this incredible power and use it to become the person you were always meant to be. Your transformation starts now, and it never ends. Welcome to the new you.